Hello YouTubers, this is a noobifier. We're going to do something very different today. We're going to look at a new piece of equipment that Virpil has sent. Sorry for the very loud volume. I'm sure that was extremely loud. We'll maybe cut that out a bit. And what we're looking at today is the CM3 gimbal from Virpil, which we've already done a full review on. This is going to be a very quick little unboxing as to what you get, how you get it, which is important. And the purpose of today's video is going to be to disable the gimbal system to rely completely on the drag clutch. And it doesn't make any sense. You're like, why would you want to do that? You have this brand new gimbal. And what we're going to do is do that so that it can become a helicopter cyclic only. This is the third gimbal, the third CM3, so I have a left and a right for Star Citizen or whatever else. And if I am going to be flying F-14, I'm going to use the CM2 gimbal that I already have, and that's sprung, and this is going to be dedicated only to helicopter. So this is gimbal base 102, which is nice because I have 101 and 103. So this is actually perfect. Now, obviously, with your gimbal, you're going to get cams, springs, and tools that you need. We're not going to use a lot of that, okay? I'm going to use the tools that were included because that's what they're for, and I'll show you what I'm about to do. So to get at the gimbal itself, we're going to take apart, it's like greasy fingers. I'm going to take apart this, and again, this is all being done in real time. And why I feel that's important is to give you an appreciation for how long it actually takes to work on things, and gives us an opportunity to have a little conversation about the finer points while we're doing this. I don't think this is going to take much more than about 10 minutes, but we'll see. I've never tried to take apart a gimbal in real time, and obviously if there's like a period of time where I'm going to take off and go elsewhere to go get a tool or something, I might compress that time. So pseudo real time. Okay, so included with it, look at that, you do get the extra springs, which again we're not going to use, so stiffer and lighter, and then Cosmo, Ava, all of the different types of cams that you would want. So because we're going to go deeper into this, what I actually need to do is go a lot more in depth with the removal. So I want I want to basically take the case off. So I'm going to go get a better Allen wrench, smaller, so I can take off the USB. The USB is attached to a daughter board, so auxiliary and USB are attached to a daughter board in there. And what it is it's held in with pins, so it's not even wired. To get the case off, you do need to take this off. This again seems more extreme than standard, but this is how when you own an expensive gimbal, it's expected that you're going to take it apart. It's designed to be taken apart, and it's not that people expect you to be like an engineering level, but normally people are more comfortable with these types of mechanical things. So this just pulls off like that. So that's your whole daughter board, and it's unpinned, so it's almost impossible to mess up. So don't feel uncomfortable taking that off. Now what that does is that lets you take the remainder of the top of the gimbal apart. So we'll loosen these. And this will remove the gimbal from the case. You'll notice I have a magnetic bucket here, a little bowl. That's really important so you don't lose any of the parts. You can hear it just clicks in. Beautiful. So that's number 2. So the CM3 gimbal only came out 2 weeks ago, and it's fantastic. It's going to basically catch up to what other companies have already done for quite some time. So I know that VKB has already had drag clutches in its Gunfighter series, and it even has drag clutches in its NXT series, which is their good entry price point, right? There's been a lot of frustration about whether or not if it actually should be called entry. So gimbal operation is really good like this. I'm going to start by releasing the cam arm by pulling these retainers out, and the springs will come out, and then the intention is to remove the entire arm and thus make it fully dependent on the drag clutch here. Now, you don't have to do this. You can, and I've already done this. I've had it set up for drag clutch operation, otherwise known as a dead stick, when I did real pilot fake helicopter. And everything worked out really, really well. But what I did notice is that even if it was completely slack, there was a little bit of residual. So when you went to an extreme, it still clicked a little bit. So I'm trying to remove or get rid of that click. So we're going to remove the rubber caps. Excuse me. And we're going to fully back off the drag friction clutch. By default, they appear to be set as nothing. This is going to get a little bit messy because there is grease here. So once you release this beyond its limit, that'll free up. Incidentally, this is how you would also perform a cam change. It would free up, and you don't have to remove it from the box to do this. So once you get to this point here, this goes limp or loose like this. You can see it moves freely. If it was still in this container, then you would be able to remove or slack this completely off. That would free up the arm and then free up the cams, and you would change them like this. You can identify the cams based on the number of dashes here, and there's also an extra dot drilled in for space sim. So I'm going to pull this out and I'm going to put it on an angle so you can see I get the entirety. I get the cam, the grease, wrong. I get the piston, the spring, the retainer, and all of that delicious grease. Grease is good. You're going to want to clean that off. You don't have to. You actually want to keep that for later if you decide to put this back together. So grease, I have some in my hand, so I'm going to quickly go get some paper towel. And I'm going to put the rubber cap back on because I don't want all this crap going everywhere. It also stops grease from getting inside, or dust from getting inside and sticking to the grease. If you really, really are hardcore, you could fire some kind of alcohol. I don't think I would go so far as using brake cleaner, but I guarantee you, if you use brake cleaner on it, do not let it touch any of the components. Be very, very gentle, not gentle, deliberate is the word I want to use. Be very deliberate with where you allow that chemical to go. Because, again, I don't think that this would necessarily breach warranty, but this is above and beyond, I think, what would be expected as far as the normal operation of this gimbal. Like if I contacted RMA or Virpil and said, hey, I have a problem with my gimbal after doing this, I would be expecting them to say, I don't understand why you did what you did. I think that's fair. Again, this is a very specific use case that I'm working on. And I always try to keep things clean when I'm working so that the mess doesn't continue. So now what I've got is, you can see a loose, it still has some center spring, but that's only this, that's only the rubber boot that's giving it any kind of return. It now has completely free motion. And as soon as I were to apply my drag clutch, then it's on. It's effectively locked down into what we call a dead stick. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go away for a little bit and get the appropriate metric wrench to remove this and remove the arm. Is it fully necessary? No. You could probably at this point take the cam out and then return this, and it wouldn't actually interfere at all. All right, we're back. So what I'm going to do now, again, many of you might think this is unnecessary. This is the very deliberate case that I'm 100% confirmed that this is going to be only used for dead stick in the future. So for that, it's 8mm. Back this off completely. Maybe by hand I can do this so that it stops the harsh clicking sounds. Right. Process seems to be very, very simple right now. There's a mild benefit to this, is that you also get to examine and see how the construction is. So what I've got is a bearing being held in by a bolt. Sorry, I'm going to move this here. I'll take up some close-ups of it. But it's a sealed bearing. There's actually 2 per side. It's actually a lot more impressive than I was expecting. So it's all billet aluminum and machined. And each of these arms is held on with 2 bearings, 1 per side, on its own bolt and own bolt carrier. So technically, if I were to get to this point, this should all just come out. I'll carry on with the next. That's loose. Now, I will say, after doing this to a gimbal, I fully expect the need to perform a full calibration again. It's not that I'm being hard on it, but I am potentially touching the sensors and the daughter boards and everything like that. So what I would not expect to be able to do is go through this entire process and not have to recalibrate everything. I am, however, being very deliberate not to put load on those daughter boards because, I mean, they're not meant to be load bearing. It's durable, but it's not meant to be like a load bearing structure, right? There we go. Bearing in the bucket with the other bearing. And then if this one is similar to the other, this one will be retained. And by retained, I mean it is a pressure fit. You can see it's in there. And if I can't move it out with a gentle amount of force, we'll just assume that it's going to stay in there. And it's perfectly fine for it to remain in there because it won't interfere with anything. And again, I'm expecting the second one to stay like that. There we go. Okay, so the bolt is done. Wow, there's even a little bushing in this thing. The arm itself is mint. Look at that. Everything's on nice pivot. Everything's billet aluminum. This is the difference between normal and boutique. Okay, let's see if this bearing is free. That bearing is free. So I'm going to assume that this one will come out as well. And there's a little bit of OCD, right? Let's see if this... I have a brass drift. I'm going to go get that. It's important to use soft metal. So by using brass, aluminum is also soft, but brass is very soft. So the intent is when you do tap on it, you'll be able to get that part loose without compromising any of the structure. So I'll be right back. We're back. So what I did off camera was I removed all of the parts. Again, hopefully the light's good. So you got the 4 bearing sealed bearings and the 4 bearing retainers. And one of them was captive, so it was basically pressed in a little bit more than standard. So I used a brass drift to drive that out. Okay, so now we have the gimbal completely separate, and it has no more arms, it has no more springs, and it has no more cams. The cam arms have been removed. What I'm going to do with the cam arms, the cams, and the springs is put all of these together in a bag, likely with this, which is the back plate. And the reason I'm going to not use the back plate is I'm likely going to mount these to Monster Tech mounts. And Monster Tech mounts do not need the back plate because they are basically the same as the Warbird plate. So all of that will go into a bag and all that will go into a box in the back of the room, and it'll be held safe so that if I ever need to make this a full gimbal again, fully functional for aircraft, I can do that. Again, perform a full calibration when this is done. You can see here, that's the drag clutch system. And all that happens is when you feed it Allen, you're activating this and it compresses or retracts tension onto this polished metal surface. It's so good, right? We needed this for so long ago. And again, this is Virpil catching up to the market. Because I'll be honest with you, it's been a long time coming that we've needed this functionality from this joystick series. I've actually asked if they would be interested in putting drag friction on the Warbird series. Warbird series and CM2, CM3, I think they're going to discontinue CM2. The point is, the CM series is very good at making lots of torque. So if you're using big extensions or you need a lot of spring tension, these are designed for that. And the Warbird are very well suited for making very smooth operation. So I guess the point is we can't just have one gimbal to do them all, because both of those gimbals do different things better. So if you want a very, very light, smooth stick, you're going to go get a Warbird. But maybe you want a little bit of friction. So we can't do that yet. Look at how great that is. So that's going to be perfect for helicopter cyclic, which is a dead stick. And in the future, so let me rephrase. This doesn't replicate helicopter or the more modern helicopter properly, because a modern helicopter has magnetic trim. So it would be held in place by trim, and you'd push a button and that would let you move it to where it needs to be, and the chopper would fly in a position, and then you'd release and it would hold there. You'd have a little bit of motion that you could move, because all motions on a helicopter are normally within like a 2 centimeter square. That's all you need to do to kind of maintain attitude. And of course, I've been told if a pilot pushes beyond that, then they get release. But anyways, the point is, this is not a magnetic base. Maybe in the future there will be a magnetic base. We'll carry on with the return. So you have your 8 pins, and you have 8 pin holes. Without pushing too hard, line those up. Those will just drop in like that. Perfect. And then you go find your teeny screws in your magnetic bowl. You'd reapply those. And then as soon as those 4 screws are back in, we are done. That didn't work. There we go. Bottoms out. No need to torque this down a lot, right? We'll put the 4 in a cross pattern like normal, like you would do with a car, and then you just snug up on it. This is aluminum on aluminum with no need to be super tension, right? Super tight. And then to adjust, all you would do is back off your drag clutches. You can see there's a little bit of spring. That's minor. It's just the rubber boot. And then you come 1.5 turns on each. Perfect. So that's how to convert a CM3 into absolute pure only dead stick. And I hope that was interesting. Thanks very much to Virpil for sending this, and you are going to see more of this in the future, because again, this is the 3rd gimbal. It's going to be permanently used as a center stick, center cyclic for motion sim. Fly safe.